First thing we're going to do is take off the 7/8 wheel lug nuts, drop the tire, and then we're going to get down to the brakes. Today what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the rotors and the pads, and we're going to go ahead and pull that caliper and bracket next. What I like to do is I like to take the bottom one out, 14 millimeter, and then just lift it up. Okay, that way you can inspect them. This still had quite a bit of life left on theirs, but you know, they're going out of town. They don't want to have to deal with it later. So we're going to go ahead and pull the pins, pull our pads, and then we're going to go ahead and pull the bracket. That way we can get the rotor off. Now at this point I collapse them. Now there's a bunch of fancy tools you can use to collapse them, but what I do is I just stick the pad in there and I use a big pair of channel locks. Work smarter, not harder. I mean, there's multiple ways you can do it. That's the way I do it. You can see where they're fully seated and flush. What you do is you just go back and forth, and squeeze in the middle, and you'll get them to fully seat. If you have any issues and these don't go in, generally you'll start to have a problem with either the caliper or the hose. And how to diagnose that is break the line loose. If you break the line loose and these go in, you got an issue with the hose. If you break the line loose and these don't go in, you got problems with the caliper. It's always best to do them both at the same time. Same when it comes to the hoses. So now what we're going to do is we're going to finish pulling this caliper off, slide it out, and then we're going to hang it up here on the strut. We're going to go ahead and pull this bracket next. Okay, now that we got the caliper bracket off, normally on these you'll either have like a little locking washer around one of the studs, but on Honda here you have a locking screw, and then you have another hole to where you screw a nut into it to pull it off the hub, which, you know, I don't have those laying around, so we're going to go old school. But this is the tool that I use to get the screw out. You just put the proper bit on it and then use your hammer and smack it, and it'll spin it as you hit it with the hammer. Next up, normally you'd put screws in here. I think they're 3/8 10 thread, but I don't keep those readily available here in the shop. So what we're going to do is old school. Grab the old, you know, and what you want to do is you want to tap here, tap here, tap here, tap here, tap here, and sometimes right here, but just don't damage your backing plate and don't damage the studs. Okay, I'll be back. Like expected, I only hit it a couple times right here. There she goes, coming right off. Another thing to do now that you get your rotor off is you want to clean your hub up, make sure it fully seats flush. You can see where it's built up with rust here and there. This hub looks really good. I'm still going to clean it up just a little bit, just to make sure it's properly seated. And then we'll move on to cleaning the rotor before we put it on. I didn't put too much effort into it, but you can see it's nice and shiny now. And I just used this little whiz wheel. That's it. Nothing fancy. One thing I forgot to mention, I always hang my calipers. And do not want the weight of the caliper hanging down and ruining this hose, because this is a two-way street hose, as I like to call it. And if you stretch it or damage it, well, then your caliper won't work properly and it'll start binding up and causing heating issues, and well, then you're going to have a lot of problems. So always properly hang up your caliper and don't just let it dangle there. That's just, I don't know, a piece of wire or something I found in the shop. I use it on all kinds of cars. Next on the list, so we're going to go ahead and get this caliper opened up, pull the bag off, shoot it with a little bit of brake clean both sides. When manufacturing, they cover them in oil so that they don't rust while shipping or waiting to be used. So you got to make sure you properly spray them on both sides, clean it up, then put it on the car. Now, we're going to spray it one more time. I sprayed it on the floor, but you know, you always get fingerprints on it. Also, when putting the rotor back on, make sure you line the hat up to the one hole to be able to put the screw back in. Just because you pulled that out doesn't mean you leave it out. You gotta put it back in and use the hammer tool, or, you know, best as you can, tighten it down, properly seats this. We're going to go ahead and spray this one more time on the inside and on the outside, and then we're going to go ahead and get our caliper bracket prepped and ready to go back on. Something to always take note of: this is the way the caliper came off the vehicle. This is the passenger side, and you can see the screamer's at the top on the inside pad. And that's the reason, because the tire rotates like this, and you always want the indicator to catch before these grind down, right? And as you can see, there was still quite a bit of life left on these pads, but they don't have to deal with this when they're out of town, so they wanted it done now. And hey, I'm not going to argue with the customer, right? So all right, we're going to go ahead and get the new hardware on, get the new pads in, and get this thing bolted up and ready for the caliper. Installing new hardware, you always want to make sure it properly seats. You see what I'm talking about right here? Right there. You always want to make sure it's properly seated in there. A lot of people put these on and they forget to push that in, and then the next thing you know, you got rotor noise coming from where this rotor comes through here and rubbing that, okay? And you want to do the same thing on the bottom as well. Get you a little bit better of a picture. You see how it's wedged in there? You just want to press it down with your finger. These are easy to swap out, these hardwares. Just use a little pry bar, pop them out, and you get these guys. You know, this is what it looks like when it comes out. But you can see where it wedges itself in there. So just don't forget that. Otherwise you'll have some rotor noise and you'll be pulling everything back apart, wondering what you did wrong. Simple little thing could cause a lot of noise. And then we're going to go ahead and bolt these on, and before we put them on, we'll put a little bit of brake lift there on the slides, brake lift here on the slides, and then we'll lube up these pins and make sure. Show you what I mean by pins. There we go. Put some more lube on those pins before we go installing them back in there, and same with the one on that's on the caliper. Now you can see what I mean by how close it actually is right here. And you have that left out, and it'll just rub the outside of the caliper. All right, now we're going to go ahead and put some brake lift, but we're going to put it on the little edge pieces right here when we slide it in for the new hardware. I'm just going to use a little bit of brake and caliper grease. And like I said, we're going to put it on both sides, slide the pads in, and don't forget, always make sure that screamer's up compared, on the inside to where the tire rotates. Show what I mean? Just a little bit of grease on where they slide in those hardware. And then we'll just go ahead and install them in. So we'll do the first one. Slide in just like this. And there we go. And you can see where it rides and why you want to put the grease there, right? So it doesn't get dried up and get stuck. We're going to go ahead and add some grease to this pin, grease to that pin. And I generally put a little bit on the pistons and on the backing, so it just eliminates noise, rattle. And we'll get back to you. Go ahead and show you what I mean by that. And a little grease on the pin, grease on the pin, just a little bit on the pistons, and a little bit on the back side. Now we're going to go ahead and put the caliper on, put our two little helper springs, and get this thing bolted down. Okay, a lot of people fight with this when they put the helper springs in there. So what I do, so I use my hands for the bottom, right, to hold it together with the springs, and then I just slide the caliper on top. And next thing you know, you got her fully seated. Springs are in. Ready to put the last caliper bolt back in. Tighten her down and give her one more quick clean. These are 25 foot-pounds of torque, and the caliper brackets are 80. Just in case. I mean, if you don't have one, generally you can do it by feel, but better to be safe than sorry when it comes to brakes, so I always do everything by the book. And now we got everything on there. We're going to go ahead and throw the tire back on and get it torqued down. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention when collapsing the other caliper, this is the driver's side, you're going to end up losing a lot of brake fluid because it's going to push it all out the master cylinder, which will regulate once you pump up the pedal. So out with the old and with the new. All right, let's get this tire on, bolt it up, torque it down, call it a day. Okay, now you can see what I'm talking about. When you collapse both cylinders, it forces the excess out and get it all over the place. So water will clean it off, brake clean, whatever, either one, doesn't matter. Then when you pump the brakes up before you leave, remember, always pump the brakes up after a brake job. It'll drop back down to the maximum, and you'll be fine. One other thing, Now that you've compressed these calipers, both this side and the other side, when you're done, you're going to want to make for sure, before moving the vehicle, check your fluid level in your master cylinder, make sure it's topped off, and then pump your brakes up, because you will not have a pedal until you re-pump, pressurize the system. So don't just hop into the car and back up. You know, everything here is for entertainment purposes only. But just remember, after you're done with your brake job, go back in there, pump up your brake pedal, make sure it's nice and hard. If it's not, and you've got an issue, you got a problem, you got a leak somewhere, and then retrace your steps. We'll see you guys on the next one. This is what I mean by you must pump the brakes. Once you collapse the calipers, all the pressure's back up. So watch what happens. Straight to the floor. At this point, you'll have no brakes until you pump them up. Oh, there they go. Back in operational order. All right. Don't forget. We got the rim on. I generally hand start all these, no matter what. Don't ever just put them in a gun and then zip them on like NASCAR. That's not the way it works. Put them all on hand and then tighten them in a star pattern to properly seat the rim. Okay, don't go hammer, 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 send it. You want to get just snug enough to where you can get your torque spec. Put your torque bar on there and run and torque them down once it gets onto the ground at 94 foot-pounds. And then you want to retorque them after 50 to 100 miles to make sure that they don't come back loose. But if you over-torque them, the problem with that is you'll warp the rotor. I know a lot of people don't know that, so you want to be very cautious. You know, hand tighten. I understand not everybody has that, but just don't over tighten them too much, you know. But don't leave them loose and lose a wheel either. All right, this is how you do on the passenger side. You're going to do the same thing to the other side. I'm going to cut the video here just for time purposes. So yeah, if you like this video, like, subscribe, and catch you around for more content. After you finish washing it down, it's time to go ahead and give it a thorough test drive. Now remember, you don't want to go speed racer. You just want to break them in normally. First 500 miles is crucial to the braking period. So take them easy. All right, we'll see you guys on the next one.